Ugh. I tried to make it as loud as possible. I sacrificed. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Inking Out Loud for episode 43. Last week, we left off with chapter 15 of Lord of Chaos, the sixth book in Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series. And today, we're picking up for part 2, which will be chapter 16 through 42, The Black Tower. I'm your host, Rob Santos. I'm joined by my co-host, Drew McCaffrey.
How's it going, everybody?
And Starship Captain Jarrod Livingston.
Yo!
And before we get started, we also need to welcome our newest patron at the Radiant tier, Joseph McFarland. Joseph, thank you very much, my man.
Yeah, thanks for supporting us.
He will also be glad to know that we've added his recommendation to our reading list. So now, I'm passing this off to Drew, who's going to summarize what we've just read. Drew, bring it on.
Yeah, so we had a lot of jumping around in this section. We kicked things off with Rand. Basically, Rand, for this whole part, is going back and forth between Caemlyn and Cairhien. He meets both the Tower's embassy and the Saladar embassy. Some Ogier show up, and Rand has his plan to start locking down the Waygates. They go to Shadar Logoth, and he loses Leah, the Maiden of the Spear, there. He reunites with Min, and he gets a letter from Elaine, a very opaque letter from Elaine. And then at the end of this section, Rand makes one of the biggest pronouncements in the series, and he founds the Black Tower and the Ashaman. We have names for those now.
We have names. We have titles. We
Yeah.
have ranks.
And meanwhile, Egwene continues her training with the Wise Ones until she is summoned to Saladar, where she is raised to the Amerlin seat. And during that intervening time in Saladar, Nynaeve heals both gentling and stilling to various degrees of success. So,
Thursday for Nynaeve.
Yeah. So yeah, we had some pretty fun things happening in this section, and I'm looking forward to discussing it.
Yeah, we had a lot happen in this section. This was slightly longer than our usual, tackle for the Wheel of Time for a single episode. Chapters, like I said earlier, 16 through 42. This is well over a third of the book, and there was a lot happening. But we decided we wanted to end it here so that we have all the more time to discuss everything that happens at the end of this book. But for now, I want to see if you guys have anything style-oriented that you want to discuss.
I did not have anything written down.
I didn't have much. Jarrod?
Nope.
Okay, so the only thing I really had to write down, I just wanted to focus, like I did very recently, about, on Jordan's ability to use this kind of bizarre social landscape of the Aiel and continue giving us things to laugh at. And even at this point now, things to cringe at once you start to get a feel for them. And I'm referring right now, of course, to the Maidens of the Freaking Sword.
Yeah.
And they have guy shine with weapons. It's so wrong. You know? Mm-hmm. I can recall being vaguely amused at the discomfort that we see from the Aiel and Cairhien when I was a teenager reading this. But I don't remember ever before cringing myself almost to my knees like I did at work last week when that part came up in the audiobook. I was like, "Oh my god, it hurts so much." It really did.
Yeah, there's a pretty big impact from Aiel culture that we start seeing in this book. Influencing the Westlands and interacting between the Cairhienin and the Aiel, and obviously the Maidens of the Sword, so to speak, here are one of those. But another one that I really wanted to talk about is Mangan. And
yeah, I have part of that with Rand's as a character discussion points about Mangan.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see how Robert Jordan so naturally blends these cultures and shows us a proper amount of culture shock. It makes these characters and these societies feel real, that they don't just exist in bubbles even when the bubbles come into contact. There is an amalgamation and assimilation in certain ways going on.
Yeah, and I just want to tip my hat to another point, just to round off my style discussion here. Jordan just deciding to be, okay, I'm out with it. I'm having Rand interview Ilaria Sarand and learn that he is not in any way related to Elaine. I thought, nice one, Jordan. Real subtle on that one. Wink.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, that rounds off my style discussion. I can dive into characters now. I have so much to discuss about Rand this time around.
I think Rand is a good place to start here. Do you agree, Jared?
Yep, let's do it.
Okay. Well, is there anywhere in particular you wanted to start? Because
let's start with Mangan. I mean, that's
Okay,
I think a pretty key moment for Rand in his progression as a ruler. It's this moment that shows us he is still retaining some humanity, but he is struggling mightily with the demands of rulership and the public perception of him, and he knows that if he doesn't go through, if he doesn't follow up on this law that he created, just because he liked a guy, and it's a sad moment, that Rand has to sort of take this necessary step in his progression as a ruler.
Yeah, no, like hanging of Mangan, it was tough, it was brutal, it was necessary for Rand to learn. I did get a thought this time though, and it might be worth a quick tangent. I wanted to ask both you and Jarrod, what do we think would have happened at this point, specifically at this point in the series, if the murderer had been a maiden? Assuming, of course, that any maiden would be foolish enough to do it in the first place, that's on the side. But if this had been a maiden, how do you think this would have turned out?
I think given his hang-up with women, you can see his hang-up with Lanfear herself in the last couple books. If he can't bring himself to harm her, what is he going to do with a maiden?
Yeah.
I think Rand would have tried very hard to find some way for the maiden to, like, disappear or something like that to get out of it, but I also think the maiden would have acted like Mangan and acted according to G-Eto and go to Rand and basically say, like, no, I'm not escaping this. I did what I did.
Yeah.
I must, suffer the punishment.
Do you think maybe he would have just let Sulin deal with it?
See,
Yeah,
okay, so that's
possibly.
that's kind of where I'm going with this, because if that had happened and it had been a maiden, the only way I could really see that realistically working out would be the wise ones in Cairhien discovering that he did this, realizing that he still has this weakness and he's not going to be able to follow through with his own law and taking care of the problem before he even arrives. Perhaps.
That could be. Yeah.
Which would have really, really, really pissed him off probably once he learned about that, and might have driven another wedge between him and the wise ones. But, as we see, that didn't happen. It was Mangan, the hanging of Mangan, if you will. And, yeah, I wrote that one down. I wasn't sure if I was going to say it, but, the moment was ripe. But, yeah, it was tough. It was tough to read, but it was very, very, important stepping stone in the journey to this, or through this dark Rand character that we're seeing so far.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And of course, we get a little bit of a flip side of that when Rand meets up with Min again, and we see a little bit of Rand's sort of lighter side coming back out when Min shows up.
Yeah, no, he does. Yeah, that happened right near the end of this particular part, right?
Mm-hmm.
I really like Rand's sense of humor with Sulin's punishment in Camelin having to be his maid.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's another thing I wanted to ask you guys specifically about Rand as a character and his relationship with Sulin at this point in the series. Do we think he's treating her unfairly? Or is he just, is she perhaps being sulky and therefore earning it? Or is it both? Is it neither? I'm a little on her side, honestly.
I think she's being sulky and he's treating her accordingly.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. Sulin's acting like a, kind of like a little baby about this whole thing. And
is she, though?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, we can see that she's willing to horrifically shame herself if it means summoning enough spears in time to protect Rand, in the count of 50.
Yeah, but she's turning herself into a martyr. And I think Rand sees that foolishness involved in it. So,
you think she takes herself too seriously?
Yeah.
I can see that. Another thing about Rand I wanted to discuss. Oh, the scene in where he it might, I'm bringing it up now because it might not make my top 3, but it's from Rand's point of view as he visits the school that he set up in Cairhien.
Oh,
and seeing these inventions I thought that was pretty neat as a reader with context for what these things might be. and also to read it from the point of view of a character who has absolutely no idea what he's looking at.
Right.
You know, this whole scene had like this very kind of whimsical slice of life from the Dragon Reborn's perspective, you know, feel to it. I thought it was superb all the way through.
Yeah, I love the idea of the academies, and it is, you're right, it's fun to kind of dig into how Rand is describing these things and put the pieces together to figure out what exactly, in our modern sense of things, these inventors are trying to come up with. So
yeah, and like the way he gave 100, I think it was 100 crowns gold in prize money to Kin Tovir. You know?
Yeah,
And it was at a moment where, if I might be remembering incorrectly, but I think we were really feeling bad for the man at that point. I think it was maybe perhaps the way that Adrian Tarson was like treating him. But
yeah,
you know, the important thing is Jordan still gives us reasons to like Rand, to balance out the darkness that he still has yet to bring to that character.
right, yeah, and of course we meet Herod Fell in this section, and
we do.
And he's such an enigma, you know, like
yeah.
Well, Rand finds him refreshing because he doesn't treat him like the Dragon Reborn at all.
Right. Yeah.
And then there's the man Mervyn, who's got that entire contraption of brass and steam and all these things that are whistling, and Rand has zero concept, zero clue as to what the hell this thing could be, but apparently it's going to bring a new age when he finishes it. Dude's got burns all over his hands. I love the whole dramatic irony of this scene.
Well,
we know what we're looking at.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you remember what that ended up turning into? I think it's in Winter's Heart that we see it.
Yeah, like the steam wagons, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty cool, though. I thought it was awesome. As far as Rand goes, dreaming Lews Therin's dreams of the Age of Legends. I thought that was pretty surreal. Relationship with Sulin. Let's see here. Hey, so we're starting to see a little bit of this mirroring between Demandred and Rand al'Thor that I hadn't really picked up on before. Now that we've got the context, we finished, A Memory of Light. And spoilers, of course, for A Memory of Light, kind of. But I just now picked up on this. We have two separate scenes ending after a meeting in Tel'aran'rhiod, where once the parties vanish, a figure steps out from behind a pillar, and he reveals that he was listening. The first was Demandred in the Camelin Palace, like in the World of Dreams. And then we had Rand do the exact same, learning about Salidar. I thought that was a really, really nice touch, and I had not picked that up at all, like with that parallel between Demandred and Rand al'Thor until just now, like just literally today.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. I hadn't really considered that side of it either. But it makes sense, considering how much Demandred and Lews Therin are framed as really similar people and similar in capacity and skill, but Demandred is always just slightly less effective, and we see that in those scenes where Rand gets exactly the information that he wants and needs, whereas Demandred doesn't really get as much information from his spying as he might have wanted. You know?
And I love that little moment that Jordan inserted there. I wrote down, this is what I wrote down. I said, "Oh, hey there, little red flag. Rand, Ruark just told you there's fighting in Shara. You know, those lands across the waste that you just casually ignore for the rest of the bloody series. Yeah, I hope this doesn't come back and bite you in the ass while you're fighting the last battle." And then I remembered, oh wait, it actually comes back to bite Egwene in the ass. So yeah, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, it doesn't really have much of an impact on Rand.
Never does. So that's the end of my points about Rand al'Thor as a character so far.
Well, I think we got to talk a little bit about Rand and the Aes Sedai here. Because the two embassies treat him very differently. The Salidar embassy is much more brash and direct, and Rand kind of bounces off them harder because of that. But of course, the Tower embassy is duplicitous, and their whole demeanor toward Rand is a facade. It's a front, and it just helps to reinforce how Rand is going to act toward Aes Sedai going forward. Having these interactions where there is duplicity going on, and he's already lost Moiraine, and she already told him, trust no Aes Sedai, don't even trust, trust nobody, basically. And both the Salidar and the Tower embassies, in their own ways, are giving Rand reason to continue distrusting Aes Sedai.
Yeah, they do, and that's very important going forward. Cause he like, oh my god, the way he likes to play, especially not just in the difference between how the Salidar Aes Sedai and the Tower Aes Sedai approach Rand, but the difference in how he kind of interacts in turn with them. Like he tells Egwene as he's meeting with the Tower Aes Sedai, "I'm going to be meek as a mouse," I think is how he put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, quote. I thought, especially having that scene from Egwene's point of view, I thought was a really, really neat touch.
Yeah.
But, that's that.
I don't know. That was my only real point that I wanted to bring up about Rand versus Aes Sedai, at least in this segment, because we're gonna discuss that
more.
quite a bit more
in the next episode for sure.
One thing I wanted to discuss about Rand and get your guys' input on is, do you think that he regrets appointing Tame to the position that he has him in?
Right now? No.
Yeah, not right now.
Not yet, but pretty soon. Pretty soon.
I think Rand, because this goes hand in hand with how Rand is developing as a ruler. He's trying really hard right now to delegate. He's trying to keep himself sort of above water by putting many of these big responsibilities on other people. And he doesn't always have enough people he trusts to put them all off on. So like Taim, he has to sort of make a leap there. But so far, Rand hasn't had any reason yet to really second guess himself on that. I do think a little bit of a red flag should have popped up when Rand named Taim the first Ashaman, and Taim was like sickened by it.
Oh, see, I would have thought it actually happened before that, when Taim killed the Gray Man before Rand could capture him.
He was certainly angry about it.
Yeah, I think that's also a little bit of a red flag, but that is something that, as we saw, like, it could be explained away as like somebody being ardent in their protection of Rand.
Well, the Gray Man was already wrapped up in flows of air. He was not a threat to anybody at that point.
Yeah, but Taim can just be like, "Oh, I was reflex," like.
Yeah, he at least gives him something to say, right? Like,
yeah.
He could, yeah. I see.
I think a lot of clouding Rand's judgment with all of this is Luz Theron seeming to rage even more whenever Tame's around and trying to grab the source. And so I think Rand probably attributes a lot of his feelings towards Tame as a result of that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So, are we done with Rand al'Thor?
Well, the other thing I wanted to bring up on that subject of like the delegation is how Rand's trust for Bashir seems to be growing.
Oh, yeah.
And this is actually one of my favorite sort of minor scenes in this book. It's in the chapter Connecting Lines. It starts off with Rand on the hill watching the Shi'Anaran light cavalry practice.
Yeah. I mean, Saldaean.
Or, yeah, Saldaean, sorry, not Shi'Anaran. Watching them practice and doing all these, like, acrobatics and formations and things, and you're like, what the heck is going on? And it's such a... like, you can tell it's important, but you don't know why it's important. That Rand is, like, scheduling time to go out there and review them.
Yeah.
And it's like, Rand doesn't bother reviewing his soldiers. Like, what?
Yeah, and we saw Bashir actually remind him a few times, hey, you were supposed to come out and do this, right? Are you still planning on doing this? And Rand keeps putting it off. I'll do it. Yes, I will do it. That goes to show that he does take Bashir seriously. He keeps he doesn't just dismiss it, he just reschedules it, and he does show up, as you say, in this scene to personally witness the prowess of the Saldaean horse.
And even more so, we don't get like a firm answer to it in this book, but as we'll see by the end of A Crown of Swords, these are like specific formations and things that they're going to use in the invasion of Ilion. All of these, ropes and markers and things they're riding down are the roads of Ilion, the streets of Ilion. And when
really?
So when
I didn't pick up on that detail.
Yeah, so this is a major important aspect of Rand's invasion plan, and all of that is being prepared throughout this book, where he has like the misdirection of the army out on the plains of Moredo, and he sends Matt down, and then he changes Matt's course to Salidar and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Rand is like really playing chess here, where he's moving his pieces around the board and hiding like his bishop in the back line, who's just gonna, go out and take down
Wreck.
Samael and Ilian, and I like that because it's such an understated and not necessarily overtly explained scene in this book. So,
I never realized that.
yeah,
That's really cool.
but that was my last point about Rand. So,
I have one more thing to say about Rand.
okay,
Go ahead, dude.
How hard did you guys laugh when he told Min that she wasn't a woman?
yeah.
I didn't laugh really. Even at like 13 years old, I was like, oh, dude, no, man, no, that's not, no. I've never had another reaction to it. I'm just like, ooh,
It's like
Exactly.
foot
cringe step there.
foot insert
It's
mouth.
amusing.
Like,
It's definitely a little amusing, but I wouldn't say I laughed at it because I just kind of like cringed a little bit. I was like, ugh, ouch.
yeah.
That just reminds me of exactly something I would have said at like, well, a little younger than Rand's age for sure, but I definitely would have said. Yeah.
Oh. But
I have nothing else on Rand.
I want to move on and talk about just the Saladar women in general here.
Oh, okay.
Nynaeve obviously is important here, but I also want to talk about Swan and Lyanna, and how it shows how different they are in their reactions to being healed. Where Lyanna is much more like reserved, whereas Swan in her own way like lashes out. Like obviously they both have to deal with the latent emotions that they didn't have to experience when their bonds were broken because they were stilled.
Bond, yeah.
But they handled those differently, and I think that's another good little character bit of character work on Robert Jordan's part, showing how their personalities manifest in these major life moments for them, and how Lyanna is so like steady going forward. I think Lyanna transitions much more smoothly from being stilled into being able to channel again than Swan does, because Swan is so stubborn, and Swan has a hard time adjusting to new things in her life, whereas Lyanna is very adaptable, and we see her just like immediately boom, and going forward where she is like, all right, I'm gonna be a green this time, and everybody's like, wait, what? And but it would never in a million years would you have expected Swan to say, yeah, I'm gonna change my Aja. Like, no, that's not Swan Sanche. She is what she is, and so of course she's gonna go back to the blue. So
Yeah.
I think part of the issue with Swan is that she's also dealing with this unofficial hierarchy of strength in the power now as well. So even though she is now healed, she is quite weak.
And that's because
thus, not only is she not Emerlin anymore, but even just among a group of Aes Sedai, she doesn't have much authority.
Whereas, on the other hand, Logain is pretty close to his original strength, and I want to point out that that's because Logain was healed by a member of the opposite sex.
Oh, Logain is at his original strength, and yes, that was because he was...
Are you serious? He's straight up at his original strength.
Yeah,
I thought he lost maybe just a little bit.
Is that the official, like... Is that why he healed fully? Is because it was the opposite sex?
Yeah, it's because a woman healed his gentling, and if a man were to heal Swan and Lyanna's stilling, they would return to their original strength, as far as I
as we see, Damer Flynn will heal some stilled Aes Sedai in a couple of books here, and they are back to full strength.
What?
Yeah.
Damer Flynn?
Yeah.
We had a male heal stilled women?
Yeah.
How did I miss that in this? That happened in the series? Holy crap! Like, I know Damer Flynn saved Rand's life in book 7. I know he's a gifted healer. I had no idea he did the same.
I think it's mentioned in Path of Daggers. I mean, we don't see it happen on the page, but we hear about it where one of the Aes Sedai is talking to Rand, and she says, "Oh, by the way, Damer Flynn healed the 3 sisters you stilled at Dumai's Wells, and they're as strong as they ever were."
Oh my god.
Yeah.
It's news to me. Go
Yeah.
Damer Flynn.
But to your point, Rob, yes, Logain is back to full strength because he was healed by a woman, and Swan and Lyanna are so much diminished because they were healed by a woman.
So hypothetical question: say they were stilled again, and then they were healed by Damer Flynn.
Right. I knew you were going to ask that. I'd have to dig it up again, but if my memory serves, which it usually does when it comes to this stuff, Robert Jordan said no, it would not work. Like, it would basically be like, if they were stilled again and then healed by a man, they would just be healed back to their post-stilled strength.
Damn, that sucks.
And there was some, like, discussion around, like, how your body, like, once you're scarred, your body won't, like, get rid of the scar if you cut open again, like, that sort of a thing.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and then on that same subject, just as, like, a general thing, burning out cannot be healed where severing can.
Oh, I hadn't even thought to ask that.
Yeah, and I mean, that's something obviously we'll probably talk about more when we get to the Martine Janata stuff later on, but there definitely have been some statements from Team Jordan about that, where, like, if Nynaeve went to Satal Anan and tried to heal her, it wouldn't work. So
Okay.
and
Damer Flynn could do it. He could get it done.
no, because she's burned out.
Oh, sorry, Satella Anan burned herself out?
Yeah, she was Martine
I
Janata,
thought-
the one who was studying the Terangreal and had an
Oh,
freak
I didn't know they
accident.
were the same person. I know who Satella Anan was. I didn't realize she was the same person as...
Oh, Rob,
my
you're killing
God.
me right now.
I know, dude. Ah.
So, but
Got some
anyway,
real-time fans somewhere
this is all.
going,
This is a lot of stuff for, like, down the road, later books. But
Yeah.
Another random technical question I had
Sure.
is, why was Swan still affected with like the latent emotional effects from the bond, even though she was stilled?
Because
I mean, doesn't that break the bond at the point of stilling?
So, as I understand it, it is like a one power effect essentially with the bond. And so when she was cut off from the one power, she was also cut off from the effect and the results of the broken bond. But then once she was reconnected to the one power, all that stuff was just sitting there waiting to pour out.
Yeah. When a bond is broken like that by the murder of a warder or the murder of an Aes Sedai, it's not simply, it's not just normal human grief, although I'm sure that has a huge part to play. It's literally a supernatural effect added from the one power. You're going to hurt, like, even more. And she just wasn't subjected to that because she was still in shock as she was stilled. Like, she hadn't really...
I guess I'm wondering, like, how it sits around this whole time.
Right? It's got to be in this part of her brain that's kind of just locked away with her ability
Yeah.
to channel. And then once that part is, that pathway is healed, I don't know. I'm going into the...
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, not to get into the
we never
weeds.
got, like, a really solid answer on this from Robert Jordan. As far as I'm aware, there's nothing in his notes, like, specifically discussing it. But as Rob put it there is more or less how I understand it too. So
Yeah. So good. So we are still on the Salidar women,
yeah,
right?
now that we got the lore segment out of the way in the middle of our characters.
Oh, I still have lots more to ask you. Actually, I have like 4 questions for you today.
Okay, all right. Well, we can save that for the end. But
Yeah, we will.
let's talk about Nynaeve and Elaine here,
Sweet.
because obviously Nynaeve, there's a big deal going on, and they occupy their own special space in Saladar at this point, where they're not quite, like, treated like accepted, but they're definitely not Aes Sedai,
Like Theodrin.
yeah,
right?
and Pheolaine, yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's an opportunity for them to display their prowess and the experience they've gained during their time away from the tower and hunting the Black Oddjob, but of course they're still constrained so much, and for Nynaeve especially, that's it's very difficult to handle because this is Nynaeve we're talking about.
Yeah.
Even though she's doing things that none of these other Aes Sedai could even dream of doing, she still has to knuckle under and deal with how they think things should be done. And of course it finally it takes this to get the Yellow Ajah to respect Nynaeve and respect her unorthodox healing weaves. Where they're like, why would you ever think of using fire?
I'll say,
what?
Respect, exactly. Fire and earth. Everybody knows that
Fire
healing
and
is
spirit.
just air, water, and spirit.
Well, because
Right?
she uses fire and spirit.
I thought, okay, yeah.
The chapter's called.
I thought it was fire and earth that kind of threw them off.
The chapter's called Fire and Spirit, or Spirit and Fire.
No kidding.
Let me just.
Ah,
I don't
okay.
remember which one's first, but
As far as Nynaeve goes,
it is Fire and Spirit.
Yeah, look it up. I'll
Yeah,
just say
it's chapter 29, Fire and Spirit.
my only point about Nynaeve is that I was really excited that we got to see Nynaeve with an absolute win, because seeing her struggle with her block for so long, it's been such a bummer. And then she did it. She bloody did it. She just healed Stilling. That powerful moment with Swan and Lyanna that we just discussed, that was just so damn wholesome. And I thought that was something that Nynaeve really deserved and really needed at this point, because her struggling with her block is really, really starting to take its toll.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It really pisses me off when right afterwards, like right after doing this legendary thing, immediately all the yellows are like, oh, we can totally improve on this. Like,
Right.
you should have done this, you should have done that.
Which confused the crap out of me, I'm not going to lie, but then Nynaeve came to the realization that they are, for a large part, just doing things to keep her angry so that she can just demonstrate it again and again and again. I think they were a little self-aware of what they were doing at that point. They were just intentionally trying to irritate her. I'm not trying to excuse the Aes Sedai, they are ignorant. Definitely.
Oh,
Definitely.
100%.
But I think some of that can be explained with them intentionally trying to piss her off so that she can continue performing this weave.
Yeah, I think Nynaeve has a little bit of a nadir to her character arc in this segment of this book, because it's when she's at her most experienced yet repressed, because pretty much everything after this point, Nynaeve's away from the institution of the White Tower, and she kind of gets to be her own badass self. It's tough to read about her for stretches here, and then she has this kind of crowning triumphant moment that helps mitigate that and sets the stage for her to then move on when Egwene is raised to Amyrlin, and then subsequently Nynaeve is raised to Aes Sedai. So
yeah. As far as Elaine goes, I wanted to say that it was kind of, I don't want to say it was amusing, that's kind of the wrong word, but it was definitely surreal, like watching her learn, supposedly, that her mother is in the Fortress of the Light in Amador, and supposedly guest of Padron Niall. She just kind of laughs it off.
Yeah.
I wrote down, ouch.
yeah,
And then, to wrap up Nynaeve and Elaine in particular, glad to see them finally get their excuse to leave Salidar. It's tough reading them there. It really is.
Yeah.
Egwene, raises to the Amyrlin, sends them after the Bowl of the Winds in Ebudar. Glad that they finally got their excuse.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And we get to see some more Matt in this segment.
We do.
Some great moments.
Some golden Matt. I only have
Classic
one
Matt.
thing written down about Matt, but it was exactly what you're thinking it is. The entire scene where he meets with Egwene as the Amyrlin seat. I'm putting air quotes
It's
there
so
for
funny.
those who can't see. Oh my god, my sides. This is hands down one of the top 3 funniest scenes in the entire Wheel of Time series, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's just every word from beginning to end in that chapter. Well, there's the chapter that follows actually after he learns that she truly is the Amyrlin seat, and his response to that. Oh, every word of that is just gold.
I'm trying to find the quote. Yeah, when he
Close your mouth, Matrim Cawthon.
well no, so
Or
when
else you'll
he
catch
shoves
flies.
Egwene, and he takes a stole off her neck and pulls her out of the chair and shoves her away from the table, and it's
He's like, what are you, freaking crazy?
the silver fox head went dead cold against his chest, Egwene only looked puzzled, but Nynaeve's mouth was hanging open again, and Elaine's big blue eyes looked ready to pop out onto the floor. And he's just like, oh, where's the line? Yeah, you'll need those cushions if the so-called Amerlin finds out about this little joke of yours. Yeah. And he goes, no, if you wanted to talk, you should have talked instead of lashing out with your bloody power.
Yeah, warm my bottom, Nynaeve mutters, whatever the heck she says. Yeah. She goes and kicks him right in the ass. Oh, right in the sciatic nerve.
Oh, it's so
good. All
the
people that deserve that medallion, it's Matt.
Oh, 100%. Nobody needed that medallion more than Matt.
Yeah.
The amount that he has to deal with the Wonder Girls and how quickly they all leap to just, when he's being inconvenient, try to tie him up with the one power. Like, come on.
It was really hard for me not to make a dark joke there, so I'm just going to come out and say it. I think Jarrod could have used that medallion a little more.
It would have made no difference for Jarrod.
Yeah, maybe not for him.
It would have made no difference, but...
So, yeah. Matt, Nynaeve, Elaine. Egwene, do we want to discuss Egwene? Is everything we have wrapped up on Matt?
Yeah, I think I have enough for Matt for now. I have one more point on Matt, but that's going to be another lore bit.
Okay.
But with Egwene, I'll come out and say it. She's pretty good in this segment, I think.
Holy shit. Stop the presses, ladies and gentlemen. Play that sound bit back. Go ahead.
I still have some issues with how she plays fast and loose with Jarrod. But to her credit, she does fess up to the wise ones before she leaves. That is to her credit. Whether that whole sequence of breaking the rules and how Egwene treats that, the mentality she takes going forward based on that experience, all that aside, because that, like, pretty much all that is not the spirit of Jarrod. In that moment when she says, yes, I have toe, that is like an impressive character moment for Egwene.
It definitely is.
And especially immediately preceding her elevation to the Amerlin seat. And we get to see, two sides of Egwene being afraid, basically, in these two scenes. We have one where she's afraid and nervous, of course, being honest with the wise ones. And then we see her afraid in Saladar, having no clue what's happening, thinking that she's like about to get stilled or something like that, and then it's slowly dawning on her like, oh my gosh, what? They're gonna do what? And then adapting quickly enough, and of course this is one of Egwene's virtues is like her ability to adapt to a new situation, sort of like Lyanna. I've talked about Egwene in the past as being sort of a social chameleon, where when she enters a new situation, she quickly identifies what can help me and what can I, not pay attention to in this new situation. And so within 24 hours, not even within like 10 hours of being raised to the Amerlin seat, Egwene has already started identifying what she needs to do to best come out on top in this new figurehead Amerlin role. So I like the sequence where she's raised to the Amerlin seat. It's one of the reasons, this whole middle segment of the book is so much fun because there are so many kind of crowning moments for characters in this sequence. And as much as I don't like some of the things Egwene does and her attitudes at certain points in the series, this is a really big character moment for her. And the way, not only what happens to her, this essentially a gift, even though it wasn't intended as a gift, that she is given, but how she reacts to it and how she handles it. So.
Yeah. Jarrod, Egwene?
And, I'd say certainly within a day of being there, she's already politically maneuvering around Lelaine and Ramonda.
Mm-hmm.
She's manipulating Shiriam a little bit. Yeah.
A little playing with fire, but I can respect it.
Yeah.
I never really understood their logic of choosing her.
Why not? She was the Dragon Reborn's former betrothed. Like,
So we hear some little tidbits of
We
like
do,
when
leading up to it,
Nynaeve
yeah.
is like eavesdropping and stuff. Egwene's strength in the power is a big deal. The fact that she was away from the tower and away from Saladar for all this time, they see her as like a more neutral option. And of course, her age, she's much younger. She doesn't have the strings attached, the political strings attached that Elaine would, and she's younger and less stubborn, well, sort of less stubborn than Nynaeve. And so and of course she has the tie to Rand. So there are a lot of attractive options there for, of course it all backfires because they failed to like take into account her actual character, the kind of person that Egwene is.
I guess I struggled to understand most the rest of the Aes Sedai there respecting that decision.
Well, they don't really have to. It's as the Hall raised her.
The Hall of the Tower is the one who makes a decision, I suppose. Yeah.
And then once once she's officially Aes Sedai by virtue of being the Amerlin seat, she's immediately at the top of the hierarchy because she's the strongest in the One Power.
Is she though? I mean, Nynaeve is stronger than her.
Yeah, but Nynaeve's not an Aes Sedai.
Oh, as
At
far
that
as the
time?
ranks of the
Yeah.
Aes Sedai go.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
And while they allow Egwene this role of Aes Sedai by technicality, there's a lot more resistance to Elaine and Nynaeve being raised, without the testing.
So, actually, hold on. I just thought of another question.
Wouldn't Elaine make more sense? Like, if it came down to
No.
a struggle
Because they
Elaine's
were
got
afraid
Lionel
of the
that she would bring
political...
Andor into the fold?
They were afraid of that political connection.
Yeah.
There could have been all kinds of political ramifications if an Aes Sedai who is the daughter heir of Andor is just
Tarvalin
like that would have been seen.
Andoran state.
Yeah, like that would have been seen
What, like
by
a
a
power
lot
grab
of
or
rulers
something?
and nobles as like a transparent power play by Tarvalon to attach themselves permanently to like establish a hierarchy in one of, if not the most powerful nation in Randland. Especially with Saladar, where they were already kind of aware of a potential illegitimacy to what they were doing, especially with things we find out later in the series. They would have been smacked down pretty hard if they had tried to do that with Elaine.
Yeah. So to get my point, just my brief thoughts of Egwene out of the way here, I will say I was a little disappointed that her training with the Wise Ones is finally coming to an end, because this also marks the last of what I'm referring to as the palatable Egwene from here on out.
Yeah.
But as you were saying, Drew, she had a few shining moments in this part of the series, in this part of the book in particular. Her chapter, Courage to Strengthen, was superb. Absolutely phenomenal. Her decision to deal with her toe and to enlist the aid of the Wise Ones to help her beat it, the way she accepted punishment, she laid down for more. I mean, she was embraced as nearly an equal. Like, such a huge moment for her. And there are big things coming for her. Not always going to be things, of course, that I like, but big things nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I went on to say, speaking of big things, being raised to the Amerlin seat. I mean, in terms of holy crap moments in the entire series, that's got to be on the top 5 of anybody's list. Like, it just has to be, right?
Yeah, talk about Robert Jordan's ability to build tension in a scene where he does such a good job of burying you in Egwene's point of view that, to her, of course, it would never occur that she might be being raised to the Amerlin seat, And so to us as well, even though he's seeded these little hints with Nynaeve, like eavesdropping and things like that, it never occurs to us the first time reading through that this is what's going to happen. You're like, oh, like what is, why is she being called back? And then she has this panic. Well, you assume
it's because they found out that she's been masquerading as an Aes Sedai, right? And you're kind of terrified for her at that point.
And then she gets like whipped into the hall, and suddenly you're like, wait a second?
Yeah.
What?
You're expecting the disapproval, not just the disapproval, but the condemnation of Aes Sedai for trying to pass herself off as amongst their ranks. She's ready to be stripped in the town square and flogged, and instead she's told, You are now the most powerful woman on the earth.
Yeah.
Or at least one of the two, but they don't know that the Shanshan Empress is pretty powerful too.
Maybe we should have talked about this in the style discussion, but it didn't even occur to me until now.
Sure, go ahead, dude.
The place this takes in the book, right? So this is in my paperback copy, it's like 1,009 pages or something like that. And in the Hall of the Sitters, it starts on page 661, almost exactly 2/3 of the way through the book. 2/3 of the way through most books is when the shit goes down. Like when your characters have their legs cut out from underneath them. When it seems like everything's going well and then something horrible happens in a twist. And so he sets this up as, like whether consciously or subconsciously as a reader, you're expecting something to go wrong here. And then in a reverse twist, something goes brilliantly right for Egwene.
Yeah.
That was a really, really cool authorial move.
That's really, really cool. And how it lined up that close to the exact 2/3 point of the book.
Yeah, it is always interesting to dig into books and the structures of them and where certain plot beats tend to happen. And then compare and contrast and look at, all right, this is where we would expect something like X to happen. But in this book, something like Y happens instead, and that's what we're dealing with here. So I think that's really cool.
That's the end of my Egwene points. Actually, I think that's the end of all of my character points to discuss for today.
Jarrod, do you have anything more to add about Egwene?
Nope.
Okay, so well, I think that'll be enough for me on Egwene 2 then. Rob, you said that was the end of all of your character?
Yes.
Yeah,
I still have a couple of miscellaneous impressions and some questions I want to throw at you.
Okay. Fire away.
Oh, okay. So, should I ask the questions first, or just get my little miscellaneous moments? I'll do that first. Just a stupid general question I have. This is not about Wheel of Time lore at all. But, do hawkers ever do anything besides cry their wares? This is a thought that I've had before, and I don't think I've actually voiced it up until this point, at least not on the podcast. But I am so sick and bloody tired of hearing that line, the hawkers cried their wares. It happens in every single fantasy book and by every single author. I'm done with those 5 words. I mean, sequentially, I'm done with it.
To be fair, that is what a hawker is.
I know, but cry their wares. There's so many different ways to say what they do, and those 3 words, I'm just so over it. It's my goodness.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's fair.
Right? This is the kind of stuff I'm writing down when I'm listening to the audiobook. I mean, I'm at work. I just have miscellaneous impressions I want to get out of the way.
Nice.
Okay. Chapter 17. We get a Nail joke that I love. It was Urian who made the joke, and Rand is talking to him and Davram Bashir. And he says to the two, he goes, "If you insist, 2 of you can hang out to protect me from mice. I don't think anything larger will jump out at me here." And then Urian grins, and he nods, and he gestures about head high to a Kyrienin, and he mutters, "Well, the mice can be big here."
Yeah.
Oh, shit. That one killed me. I don't remember ever picking up on that one before. It must have gone clear over my head at least 20 to 50 times before I got it this time around. What a gem. I love this style of Aiel humor. At first, I just went and reread it, so I could write down the exact quote. And I was a little disappointed just now to find that he was talking about the Kyrienin, because I thought he literally gestured to about head high on Bashir, who was standing right beside him, and said, "The mice can be big here." I thought that's what he originally did. That's why it killed me so much. It was good.
Yeah. Well, I do have one more thing that I think we need to discuss. It's not necessarily a character thing, but just a general plot and an important moment. And that is the founding of the Black Tower.
Yeah.
I mean,
I brought this up at the end of the last episode? No, at the end of Fires of Heaven Part 3. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, when the amnesty was announced.
He announced his amnesty. I was like, oh, big moment for the series.
But here we find out not only, we've already seen the farm get started, we've seen some guys getting trained and all of that, But when we have this moment of organization, and on top of that, specifically a like a mission statement to use some like marketing lingo, it goes to show where Rand's priorities are, of course, and how he views his role as the Dragon Reborn, where he's not just focused on fighting the Dark One, which is what he could be. A more selfish Dragon Reborn might be totally fixated on this whole, like, my blood on the rocks of Sheol Ghul aspect of it. But Rand is saying, no, we need to make use of our resources to protect all of humanity. And to guard. And he brings in, the word Ashaman, this old tongue guardian that has connotations of, like, righteous protection and...
the ideal.
Yeah, and then, of course, Taim has this, like, obvious revulsion when Rand calls him the first Ashaman. Because whether, he's Demandred or just Mazrim Taim, he is still a servant of the Shadow. And he's being lauded as exactly the opposite of what he's trying to do.
Okay, so I guess that's actually, I just got a fifth question now. I just added one there, and this is the perfect point to ask it, I think, Drew, before you continue. So he's already a servant of the Shadow at this point. When precisely did that happen?
It was after he was freed from the Aes Sedai. So
before he even approached Rand in...
Yes,
the
retcon.
This book.
In the retcon version. Because obviously, in the version of this book that we're reading right now, when Robert Jordan wrote that, this was Demandred. Yeah. But he changed his mind and made him just Taim. But in that retcon version, Demandred freed him from the Red Aja who captured him in Saldea, and basically brought him this offer of, like, join the Shadow.
So that would have happened before even he accepted Rand's amnesty and
then
Camelot.
And then the Shadow gave him the seal to bring to Rand as, like, a token of goodwill. Trust. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then, and of course, from the get-go, we see Taim twisting, like, the theme, the goal of the Ashaman, to be not this ideal of guardians and protectors of humanity, to be just mindless weapons instead. And Rand says, make me weapons, but you can do that without being like,
without being like Taim.
Yeah. So I mean, this is just such a major point. And there's also, like, you got to bring it up. The cool factors here, man. Like,
oh my goodness, how can you deny that?
The soldiers and the dedicated and the Ashaman and the Black Tower to balance the White Tower and the pins, and it's I do
have to say, Rand's speech there, did anybody else, like, kind of cringe a little bit when nobody was, like, making any noise? It was just crickets when he was making these pronouncements.
I didn't necessarily cringe at that, but I
was like a little, that sucks.
I did feel a little, like, because it was in front of such a small crowd too.
Yeah, it was
there's only
30 dudes there.
Yeah,
or
a couple
like
dozen, like, and but it always struck me as something that, like, Rand's speech there was not necessarily going to have the impact on the men standing there, but it would be the kind of thing that would be repeated down the line, and that would grow in the telling, so to speak.
And I always, at these moments, like to think ahead to the Fourth Age or the Fifth Age, when they have these legends about these moments. They could have gone back to see this moment, the Dragon Reborn founding the Black Tower, and it's just a bunch of dudes standing around in the field.
Yeah, but
Rand standing on the back of the wagon. It's just really cool. I think.
But because memory turns to legend and legend turns to myth, by the time we get to those stories being told in the Fifth Age or whatever, instead of 25 scruffy farmers, who just happen to be able to channel, standing in a field, it's like the Dragon Reborn, like on a podium of marble, and The Black
That's
Tower
what I mean.
rising
How
behind
cool it
him.
would have
Yeah.
been for somebody from those future ages to come back and see this moment. And it's just a bunch of guys standing in a field with chickens scratching around their ankles and a bunch of dust in the air and people are sweating.
And nobody cheering.
I like to think like this is how legends are born.
100%. 100%.
I love that idea.
So,
To continue on with my miscellaneous before I get into my questions, I got 4 questions for you, Drew. I just want to get these next 3 out of the way real quick.
okay.
We got what's some of the most meta that Jordan ever got with this series, with the man Herod Fell. We just briefly discussed him. What a guy. Everything about this portly little philosopher is interesting as hell. And I am bummed that we didn't get more of him after this book. I'm trying to tiptoe around that particular spoiler.
Well, we've already like...
No, we said that.
Trampled
We said
that line.
No, we didn't. Because what we said was that the Foxhead Medallion wouldn't have helped him. That's
Yeah,
all
but
we said.
We've also
Who
spoiled
knows?
stuff
Maybe he was
from,
going to
like,
use it.
everything from A Crown of Swords through A Memory of Light.
That's true. I was just spoiling from Sanderson Skyward just now, but I did precede that one with a spoiler.
man.
Warning. Second, how cool and surprising was it to see how the Wise Ones received Barrelane? Like, that was heartwarming. Like, that was downright awesome. And how jealous Egwene was. The chef's kiss. So delicious. I loved it.
I don't know. It's hard to like. I've kind of liked Barrelane
I do, too.
I do like Barrelane.
the whole time.
And I'm trying to find a reason to say why I like Barrelane without sounding like, oh, he's just like the hottest girl in the world. She is a capable woman.
That's
she
definitely
can
not
fight.
why.
She is a capable leader. She I loved how she taught Fail a lesson in the first part of the Shadow Rising.
Oh, yeah, their
God, I had
little
so much to
scuffle
bitch
in the
about
hallway.
Fail back then.
Well,
Barrelane has done nothing but show herself to be a resourceful, competent, intelligent, and formidable woman.
Yes.
I mean, she has to with Maine and Tyr.
Yes.
Yeah, she has to.
But I will add this. While I do come down on the side of I like Barrelane, she's got some pretty misguided moral compass going on. Like,
I will not
she
argue
is
that.
not without her flaws.
Nope, she is not.
But
you can see in how the Wise Ones treat her what kind of person she is.
yeah,
And
they recognize her capability.
yeah.
So
Okay. And my last miscellaneous thought, just something I wanted to note: the arrival of Halima.
yes, yep.
Ugh. Ugh.
Ugh, gross.
That's all I needed to say about that. It's just a random noise. So, all right. So my questions.
Well, before you get to that, Jarrod, do you have any
Yep.
other like miscellaneous points you want to talk about?
Nope.
Okay.
Okay. Now, deep penetrative lore with Drew starts.
You
now.
know it.
I'm sorry. What was that?
Oh, you didn't listen to our great hunt with Rob Winchell?
Oh, Jarrod, missing out.
Yeah. So the Wise Ones supposedly have a dream about Rand, and the Bowl of Winds is clearly the subject. But my question is, who is this person who is referred to as the one who is no longer, who is apparently the key to finding the bowl?
Satal Anan.
She is the one who is no longer.
Yeah, she used to be an Aes Sedai. She is no longer an Aes
She used to
Sedai.
be of the tower. That's the context.
And
it's talking
she's
about
the
there.
one who gives.
I was talking like somebody undead. I was like, who the hell is this?
It's Satal Anan, because Satal Anan is the one who sends Nynaeve and Elaine to the kin, and the kin are the ones who lead them to the bowl.
That's cool how like even the Wise Ones themselves in their dreaming, they're still seeing Satala Anan. That's cool. I like that. Okay, so number 2. This is a listener question from our Facebook page a couple of weeks back. That I thought it would be an appropriate question to add for this episode in particular.
Yeah.
But I went back today and tried to find this listener to try to give him credit, try to find the question. And for the life of me, I read through every thread on every comment leading back to our Eye of the World releases, and I couldn't find the question or the poster anywhere. So, my apologies, listener. If you can find me in that post and tag me in it, I will give you another shout out, I swear. But if memory serves, the question was something along the lines of, do we think Podden Fane brushed Elida and or Pedron Niall with the ruby-hilted dagger, like so as to make them more susceptible to his influence? Or is Fane's mere presence enough to corrupt someone on its own? I think that was the question.
So, I mean, there's a very easy answer to the first part of that, and that is no and no. Because Fane didn't have the dagger. Fane did not have the dagger when he was in the Fortress of the Light. And he stole the dagger out of the tower basement and immediately fled Tar Valon. He did not hang around to... But that said, yes, his presence is corrupting in and of itself. The more he can talk to you and like worm into your mind with his arguments and his persuasions, the more corrupt you get. And
So
and we see that. I mean, we see the results of that in Tar-Valon later on down the line when Elaida is like she's going insane. Like she's ordering
yeah.
people to not clean up the trash in the streets. Like, we see Elaida, and she was always an ambitious, forthright woman, but she was not insane. She was not mad the way she is by the end of the series, and that is in huge part due to Fane's influence on her.
So I think part of the misinterpretation here was the fact that word for word the text says from Pod and Fane's point of view in chapter 28, it says unlikely Niall would ever have supported. Oh yeah, sorry, I'm going to start that again. Unlikely Niall would ever have supported Althor any more than Elaida would have, but it was best not to take too much for granted with Rand bloody Althor. Well, he had brushed them both with what he carried from Aradhal. They might possibly trust their own mothers, but never Althor now.
Oh,
now,
yeah, well, that's just the power of...
The power,
yeah.
His influence, right.
Yeah.
And
it's Mordeth.
To expound upon that, I wanted to say, anybody who spends enough time in Fane's presence will become corrupted. The essence of Mashadar, to the best of my knowledge, is it kind of works like ionizing radiation. The dagger is a pure, potent source, but Fane has handled it for so long that he himself has become, for lack of a better term, irradiated.
Well, I think it's the other way around, actually, because Fane is Mordeth now. And Mordeth was the source of this power.
Okay.
And everything in Shadar Logoth...
So the source has left Aradhal now. That's why it's such a big...
Yeah, everything in Shadar Logoth was there for so long that it became irradiated, so to speak.
Okay.
And then... So the dagger, when it goes out, out into the world, I mean, anything you took out of Shadar Logoth, and anything in Shadar Logoth, like if you got nicked by the dagger in Shadar Logoth, you're still screwed.
Plot hole that I had a tiny bit of an issue with. I mean, how does nobody ever remove even so much as a pebble from this lost city? I mean, I don't know. Hey, but since we're on the topic, though, irradiation.
Okay.
Or I should say, of radiation or irradiated. To use the air quotes there. I do want to say that I found it very interesting during the scene from Book 5, I'm going back a book now, where Fane steals the dagger back from the tower. Mm-hmm. And we noted that the box he retrieved it from was lined with 2 inches of solid lead.
Yep.
First off, how heavy is this fucking box?
Yeah.
Do you have any godly idea how heavy a dagger-sized box would be with 2 inches of steel on the walls of that box? I don't know. It's just a little nitpick, but what I'm focusing on is the lead. Apparently, Aes Sedai have reason to believe that lead shields from the effect of Mashadar. Mm-hmm. So, kind of lends another point towards the radiation theory.
Yes, and I think that was probably a carryover from the Age of Legends, like a bit of apocryphal lore where when radiation and like nuclear power was probably much more common in the Age of Legends. In certain ways, I'm sure people were studying things and dealing with it.
Legends, probably in the first age, actually.
And so now, at any point when the Aes Sedai interact with an object of supreme dangerous power, they're going to go lock it behind lead.
Yeah.
So.
With corruptive power, yeah, for sure. Okay, so my next question then, my third question out of 4 is, at one point, Rand is ending his meeting with the Tower Aes Sedai, and as they're taking off, he addresses a question to Galena, of all people, specifically Galena, and he asks her about Alviarin. And then he explains to Egwene afterwards that she must be one of Alviarin's friends. He specifically uses the word friends. So do you think we're actually starting to see like Rand's ability to discern dark friends even so early as this?
So, I mean, maybe there's a little bit of that going on here, but I do think, this is a natural thing that like Rand would have asked about, and because he already had his interest in Alviarin because of the letter,
right?
And just then of course he's gonna ask, about her because Rand is dumb. And,
but in the letter, she makes it pretty clear that I don't want she's doing this kind of like on the down low. Like, why would he just up and do that? Like, I don't know. It seemed kind of random to me. I don't know, maybe it's a lesson in the game of houses that Moiraine managed to impart or something like that. But I don't know, just it seemed really, really odd that Galena of all people, he would ask this question about Alviarin of all people, and he would specifically use the word friends of all words. I don't know, it seemed a little.
No, I mean, I think it makes sense
Too much of a
for me.
coincidence.
That he would ask the Tower Embassy about Alviarin in the Tower, especially when she said, like, I will be your friend, essentially. But what it really comes down to here, especially as far as the Black Jack connection goes, is it's Taviran. You know.
Yeah.
It's
Taviran.
a little eddy in the pattern that is
The pattern trying to guide him.
Yeah.
To show him, hey, look at this right in front of your eyes. You know.
Yeah.
My last question. It's in a scene from Fane's point of view. We learned that he had learned himself to tell dark friends by sight, even one who had, and I quote, just thought about swearing to the shadow, as if seeing a sooty mark on their forehead. Now, I admit I could be jumping the gun. I fully get that. But does he mean this like figuratively, as if it's just as obvious to him as a smudge on a clear expanse of skin, or is he actually seeing a dark mark of some sort? And I get that it's an odd question. I know that. But it does make me think back to this moment at the end of Book 2, The Great Hunt, where Min is trying to coax like a comatose Rand back to life, and Lanfear enters the room, and she leans down and she draws what appears to be a mark. I think it was a dragon's fang on his forehead, and then he finally starts to stir a little bit in his coma/sleep. Like, am I just like reaching here? Do you think there's anything to be discussed?
So, yes and no.
Yes and no. Okay.
So yes, there is a mark that is put on some dark friends' foreheads. Alviarin gets it in Crossroads of Twilight. Shida Haran, like, presses his thumb to her forehead. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, Crosses of Twilight. That explains why I didn't remember. You know. Okay, got it. Got it.
Yeah, and so there is definitely a mark that is given to some people. That said, I don't think Lanfear was giving Rand that mark. I don't think she has the authority or the capability from the Dark One to do so. And
point,
by extension, I don't think Fane is talking about
fang.
that. Yeah, it was a Dragon's Fang. But I don't think Fane is seeing that mark either, because obviously not all Dark Friends have this mark. Alviarin was the head of the Black Gotcha for, how long, and she only just now got it.
Yeah.
I think it is a much more metaphorical thing that Fane just has this sense about it. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the end of my questions. Actually,
Okay.
that rounds up everything that I actually wrote down to discuss for this episode of Lord of Chaos.
Okay. Jarrod, do you have any final thoughts?
Nope, nothing for me.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to say, let's look forward to part 3 here, because we're going to get into some really fun stuff.
We have the
there.
end of the Lord of Chaos to discuss. Boys, I've been waiting to discuss that ending of that book since we started the Wheel of Time, since we started this podcast. Oh, I'm looking forward to it so much. So, shall we start the final draft?
Absolutely. Rob, kick us off.
Okay, so I was in the corner store. Corner store? No, we don't have beer in corner stores over here. In the grocery store. And I was looking through beers, and I was thinking, and I was obviously trying to choose something thematically appropriate. And I found one that made me stop and go, huh, of course, it's kind of obvious. Why wouldn't I? And this here is my homage to Mervyn, I think his name was, at the school in Kyrian with his little contraption of brass and heat and whistles and burns all over his body. This here is a rather standard beer. It's a premium pale ale. Premium, again, in air quotes. This here is Steam Whistle.
Nice.
Nice, right? I saw that one. Sorry, go ahead.
Where is that one from?
Oh, I don't know. This is Steam Whistle. You guys, that's not like one of the Big 10 down there, or the Big 20 at least. Like, this is like very, very standard stuff up here.
No. I've never heard of that beer before.
Really? Oh. Steam Whistle Brewing. At the Roundhouse, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Damn, I didn't realize this was actually a somewhat local thing. I thought Steam Whistle was just like because it's everywhere down here. And of course, nice. to add to that, I added another Collective Arts Brewing from, I think I had this one on a previous episode. This one's called Stranger Than Fiction. This is a porter, and my God, the chocolate, the nuttiness of it, the roasted flavor, it was great. I was really, really pleasantly surprised again. Of course, actually, Drew, I forgot to show you this earlier. Look at the cover of this thing, Jarrod. Take a look at this.
Whoa.
Right?
That is unique.
Hideous.
That's slightly disturbing, right? And I'm just going to describe what it is really quickly for those who are listening. It is a giant, fat, bald man with hair all over his shoulders and pectorals. It's just a really terrible, disturbing painting. But, hey, it's a delicious beer. It's a good porter. Nice roasty flavors in it. I'm going to be drinking that one again in the future. That one's from Collective Arts. And, of course, the first one was from Steam Whistle. Steam Whistle.
That's a great tie-in. It's a great thematically appropriate beer.
Thank you. I thought so.
Jarrod, what do you got for us?
I'm continuing my tradition of a not thematically appropriate beer.
It's a good tradition.
This is a Peach Golden Ale from Four Peaks Brewing. So they're one of the big main breweries here in the Arizona area. It's pretty good. It's not very fall-like, but it's Arizona, so...
I'm sure it's tasty as hell, too.
It's
Peach
very
Golden Ale
tasty.
sounds...
Yeah, well, my journey to find a good pumpkin ale kind of crashed and burned. I didn't want to do it again to myself this week.
Yeah. Oh.
So, Drew,
Well.
my man,
Yeah.
What do you
Bring it
got
up,
this
dude.
time?
I'm always afraid to
So,
look.
today I brought on what I believe is the strongest beer I have yet brought onto the podcast. This is
no.
an Imperial Stout aged in rye whiskey barrels,
Give
from
me a
Drake's
rye.
Brewing Company in California, in San Leandro, California. This is 17.5%.
Damn!
And
How are you
Oh
still
my
coherent
God, how
through
are
an
you
entire episode?
Speaking full sentences at the moment.
well, because I still have this much left of this
Oh,
thing.
okay.
Haven't exactly been drinking this fast.
God, you've already had more alcohol than I've had between my two tall boys combined. Holy shit.
Yeah, it is a hefty beer. It is super tasty though. I mean, it is a booze bomb. Like you take a whiff of this thing and it's just rye whiskey in your face. But yeah, once you put it in your mouth though, it's rich chocolate, nice and roasty, a little bitter, and it has this kind of like red wine, like tannic sort of finish, a little bit of oak. It's super tasty. This is a very, very good beer.
Interesting. 17.5%. I got to put that one down on the list for when I visit. First night down there, we're drinking this one, dude.
And the name of it, though, is my ode to all those Sidene users out there and to the founding of the Black Tower. It is called The Void.
Oh, man. I'm so disappointed you didn't save that one for a Stormlight book. What the hell? I see that. I see the connection. I like it. Tame and the boys.
Yeah.
Tame. Uh-oh.
Taim.
I just said tame.
Not tame.
No.
Never
no.
tame. Not that one.
Big sin, that one. Whoops. Mazrim Taim and the boys. Yeah. I like it. Nicely done, man.
Yeah. So, it's just... Whew. I mean, if you ever get your hands on this beer, I don't recommend drinking it all yourself.
That sounds like
It's
a hangover
small
in a bottle, dude.
It's a small bottle, and even then, like, you want to split this thing with somebody else. But I
Damn.
think that brings us to the end of our episode.
Yeah, it does.
And so this has been episode 43 of the Inking Out Loud podcast. Next up, we'll be diving right into the last section of Lord of Chaos. We're going to be bringing you that hot Doom Eyes Wells content. And,
Hot Doom Eyes Wells.
and if you want to get access to that ASAP, you should check out our Patreon, where you can get early access to our episodes. As as Rob said, we just had a new supporter on there.
Joseph McFarland.
Yeah.
Give him another shout out. Thank you, Joseph.
And we got lots of fun content. We got exclusive short episodes. We got a monthly newsletter. You can request a book for us to read and cover on a future episode.
Yep.
So definitely check us out there. And as always, I am your host, Drew McCaffrey. With me is my co-host, Rob Santos.
What's up?
and our special guest, Jarrod Livingston.
Yo,
You mean Starship Captain Jarrod Livingston?
that's correct.
So thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye, everybody.
See you guys.